Joining us, the Managing Director of Hunter Water, Darren Cleary. Good morning, Darren.
Good morning, Scott.
Yes, this is really interesting for the Central Coast because you're already doing it. You've bitten the bullet, as they say. What was the process you had to go through, a journey that our water corporation is just embarking on?
We've followed a similar process to what I understand Central Coast Council is following, starting with engaging with the community to understand what's important to them with respect to the water supply and how we ensure that we provide a sustainable and resilient water supply, particularly one that can deal with the climatic extremes that we're experiencing. So we started with a strategic planning process called the Lower Hunter Water Security Plan. It identified that we did have a water security problem in the Hunter. So unlike the Central Coast, our dams are quite small in relation to demand, so they can empty very quickly when it's dry, and that's really the driver for why we are progressing with our desalination plant.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was talking to Chris there, one of your colleagues, and I was always under the opinion that the misinformed opinion that you had those big dams like Glenbourne and Glenny's Creek, Lake St Clair up in the Hunter, but they're not yours, are they?
No, they're not ours. So, and they service, they're there for the towns in the Upper Hunter, so Singleton, Scone, Muswellbrook, those towns, but also for irrigators. So those dams, and they're actually owned by a different state government corporation, Water New South Wales. Our dams, we have a dam at Chichester, and then a major water supply dam at Grahamstown, and also we also use groundwater, so the Tomago sandbeds. Those water sources, they're quite close to the coast, so under average conditions, they're actually very reliable, and they provide excellent quality, reliable water supply. That means that we've been able to build dams that are relatively small in proportion to the demand that they service. However, when drought does occur, and it does occur in the Hunter, as it does up and down the east coast of Australia, they empty very quickly.
Now, how does the plant work? Take us through a layperson's explanation. I know it's rather technical, but how does the technology take salt water off the beach there at Blacksmiths and turn it into fresh water?
Yeah, so the way that it works is we bring salt water into the plant. So we need to build a tunnel out under the ocean floor. We want to get out into the ocean where we're away from the surf zone, so that the water we're bringing in is nice and clear. It doesn't have any suspended sand in it. Like, as obviously if you're right on the surf zone, when we get large surf that all the sand and the stuff on the bottom of the ocean floor gets stirred up. So you want to be out away from that. So we go out around a kilometre offshore. We bring the salt water into the plant, so via pumps, and then we run it through some filters to take out any material, solid material, so any what we call suspended solids that are in the water. And then finally what we do is we run it through what's called a reverse osmosis membrane. So in essence, that's a permeable membrane that only lets water molecules through. And any other molecules get caught on the other side of the membrane. So to force the water molecules through, we need very high pressure pumps. It operates at a very high pressure. You end up with water on one side of the membrane, and you end up with the remaining, in essence, salt on the other side of the membrane. That fresh water is then, we add chlorine to it to make sure we have a disinfectant that's available in our water network to make sure that the water always remains safe. And we also add fluoride. So that's the process. The salt that is generated then is returned back to the ocean in a way that doesn't have any environmental impact.
ABC Central Coast, we're speaking with Darren Cleary, Managing Director of Hunter Water. And that super saline water, the salt, how do you make sure that doesn't make the ocean around that area too salty, a bit of a wasteland?
Because the way that we return it back into very deep water. We put it through a diffuser system, which means that salt is very quickly diluted to the saline environment that's surrounding it. So we're going back into already a saline environment, and although you're right, it is concentrated, it very quickly gets back down to what is the normal level of salt in the marine environment, and therefore there is no material environmental impact from that salt return. So obviously, like all of these, the specifics of where you're returning that saline brine stream matters. So you can do it in a way, absolutely, that means that there is no impact.
And how far into construction are you? Have you built that tunnel way out to sea yet?
We haven't built the tunnel. We started construction in January of this year. We're getting the site ready for starting construction of that tunnel. So that tunnel construction is scheduled to happen towards the end of this year, and it's obviously one of the major pieces of construction that we will need to do. And it will be quite visible. There'll be a barge that will sit off the coast while we're building that tunnel that allows our workers to operate the machinery that needs to the tunnelling machinery, and then put the structure in place at the ocean end of it that will allow the water to come into that tunnel. So that work will get underway towards the end of this year and continue through 2026.
So power usage is also cited as a drawback. The Arab states have unlimited oil to burn, don't they? How do you go about minimising that footprint?
So desalination is an energy-intensive process. There is no question about it. The reason it is something that is pursued, though, is because, of course, it is climate independent. So when it isn't raining, you can still get the water, and that's why it's such a valuable piece of infrastructure. The way we will be powering it will be by renewable energy, and that's actually a condition of consent of our planning approval, but something we're committed to anyway. Hunter Water has a commitment to reduce our carbon emissions to be net zero by 2035, and so we're well on the way for that. We already have a contract in place with our energy provider to provide renewable energy for our current operations across our region, and we'll be looking to enter into a similar arrangement for the Belmont Desalination Plant, so it will be powered by renewable energy.
And being able to do that whenever you like, when the power is available and the cheapest, is that a great advantage?
We certainly need an arrangement that allows this plant to operate very flexible. So it needs to be available so that if we need to run the plant in its full to its full capacity, say in drought, or if we have another major operational event that we're using the desalination plant to help us manage, then we'll run the plant at full capacity. But we also there'll be times like now when it's very wet where we'll only run the plant in its minimal production capacity, so that we're not using energy that we don't need. So the plant will have that flexibility to operate across that whole range of scenarios.
It's interesting. People may not be aware that Kurnell has been running flat out due to environmental factors, fires, believe it or not. It's been providing millions and millions of litres of water.
That's right. The experience, certainly across Australia, that we've seen in other authorities, and so all major capital city or all capital cities in Australia now, except for Hobart, have desalination plants, is that they are a really critical bit of infrastructure to improve the overall resilience of your water supply. And so they are used not just in drought, but they are used in times, say, particularly in high rainfall when there's flooding, when you can get very poor water quality in your dams. And then the desalination plant is a really valuable asset to have to help manage those sorts of situations.